And I thought, I am in my grief with a child I just lost. And this is the compassion you give me? So that just made it even harder for me. And it eventually I was getting closer and closer to just like, I can't take this.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Truth That Heals podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Anthony Hernandez, and today's episode is an interview with special guest Rosie Rodriguez. Rosie Rodriguez will be sharing with us how life was like for her as a Jehovah's Witness, and there will be parts of this interview which are hard to listen to because they're traumatic. But Rosie is just so real, so authentic, and I'm so happy to have her as a guest on the show. And not only trauma, but she'll also be sharing, of course, her truth that heals. So stay tuned and enjoy this episode. Also, check out the show notes where I'll be leaving links so you can find more information about Rosie Rodriguez and the work that she does. Enjoy the episode and don't forget to subscribe. Today I'm with a special guest, Rosie Rodriguez. Rosie, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Can you share a bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
I am kind of a social media uh, girl. I use it to help others. So, and have fun. But I am born and raised in California, and I have two children, or I did, and I have three grandchildren. So I'm a busy person in the sense of taking care of family. I have went to college twice and graduated. So I do have a couple of degrees. And I did that in a later part of my life. So that's a little bit about me. I love interacting with people on social media, especially for healing and truth, like you talk about on your podcast, People's Truths. I really like meeting others who have challenges. So my story can benefit them somewhere in their life that will help them heal.
What challenges have you encountered in life that have led you to being this positive person that you are today?
Well, the challenges that I've had have been mostly a religious challenge. But as a young girl, I was in an abusive home. There was four of us kids, and my mom went through verbal abuse, through alcoholism from my step. So that was part of my growing up, and it was pretty scary as a child. So I ended up over time remarrying individuals who were just like my stepfather. And I didn't realize until I reached my 30s that I felt so empty inside, like something was missing. So my mom did raise me. She would sit with me at the Bible and she would share scriptures with me. And so she was very sweet like that. She would quiz me. And so she gave me some biblical knowledge as I was growing up. But as a child, children are very smart. And when they see things in their household that are not good, they either repeat it or they grow up saying, that's not what I want in my life. I don't want to repeat that pattern. And I didn't so much repeat the pattern, except in a relationship. And that's pretty common from what I've read myself in self-help books. I started going to the library because I'm wondering, how did I get myself in the same situation as my mother? And I laugh about it because it's like, you just don't know as a kid, as a young adult, why these patterns are happening until someone opens your eyes. And so I had read a few books. One book that I read, which I'm sorry, I don't know the authors anymore, but they were a husband and wife psychology team. And the book was called Why Women Love Too Much. And it went into the depths of why this pattern kept happening to me. So that book really helped me grow and heal. So, and I think when I started my social media platforms was because those individuals, that husband and wife team, was the start of me healing from my 20s on. And I think to myself, maybe I don't have that degree, but I have enough experience in my life that I can share it with others. I can help them see there is hope as time goes on, and find your truth, find what helps you to heal. The other thing that happened, I was searching for truths with the Bible. I seen hypocrisy kind of like in my family. My stepfather used to be a Baptist minister, or I'll just say a religious preacher of some sorts, and not to like put down anybody else's faith. But so his behavior was contradictory to me as a 12-year-old. This was wrong. And so over time, I started going to different faiths as I got older. I went here and there and there, went and visited this one and that one. So I was pretty much doing that in my early 19 through 20s. And eventually I ran into Jehovah's Witnesses because my first husband was raised in it. And I studied with the ladies there. And I studied with them for 3 years on and off. And pretty soon I went into that faith and stayed for 32 years on and off. I would leave, come back, not knowing that it had caused me severe anxiety and trauma. If you didn't do things within conformity, you were disciplined, and that discipline was very painful. I was the type of person that always wanted to learn. I wanted to go to school. I wanted better for my children. So, and off and on, I was a single parent. So I always thought there's got to be something better. So I went to a trade school and I met somebody, and then I got disciplined within the church, and then it just didn't go well. It was one of those pattern things that happened again. I met somebody who was not good. And so that's part of my journey that really stifled me to be maybe more educated now, before my age now. I'm now 59. So I think about that and I'm like, if I just had just learned quicker. But, that journey that I had 32 years within that organization, I realized it's cultish. And it was very painful to learn that. And when I learned that there's a lot of child abuse that's hidden, that was even more painful because I loved what I was in. And I loved the biblical research. I loved a lot of things about it. But when it came down to it, it was very misogynistic and very cruel to women who were abused and children. And I couldn't figure it out because at the beginning of my journey with it, they said hate is wrong, war is wrong, you don't kill each other, you don't abuse each other. The Bible says this, the Bible says that, and they would show this is what you can't do. This is what we don't do. But if a woman's abused within that organization, you're told to stay in that marriage, whether it's violence, child's abuse, because they'll take the scriptures and say, well, nobody saw it. So how could it really be true? It's only you two individuals, the victim and the abuser. So they would discourage you from getting legal help, or getting help from the police, or separating. Separating was only based on adultery. So it didn't matter if you're getting the tar beat out of you. You could win that person over by your conduct. So the wife's conduct. That kept me in a long time because I felt guilt shamed. And I'm raising my kids like that. And pretty soon I could see over time they would get depressed and be sad. Anyways, in 2019, after 32 years, I walked away. I even told them that if you don't stop contacting me, I will file a restraining order on anybody coming to my house. I was just mentally and emotionally done. I could not take it anymore because they went to the point of we become friends in there. You become like family, almost like my family who I was blood related to, because the cult taught me you shouldn't associate with them. Pretty soon you're just in that. You're just with them. That's your family. But really it's just everybody telling on each other. So if you watch this movie that isn't appropriate, or you do this or you do that, soon somebody's telling on you. So it was pretty controlling in so many ways. I just decided after I was verbally and emotionally accosted by two people I thought were my dear friends in there. They told me because I had separated from my husband. Well, he was divorcing me because I was a Jehovah's Witness and he wasn't. And they were mad. Ladies were mad, upset at me. And they convinced one of my family members that I was having a nervous breakdown. So that right there, after I worked 3 jobs, supporting my family members and going to work every day and struggling to make ends meet, they had the audacity to come in and hide in my bedroom and come over and say, "We think you're having a nervous breakdown." And so they convinced my family member to take my purse, take all my car keys, take my credit cards, take everything, and take me down to a psychiatric ward. And I'm looking at them like, I just finished working 60 hours this week and I'm exhausted. And it was like I got bamboozled all of a sudden when I came home from work. So I was like done. I'm like, you don't do that to people you love. You just don't do it. So that's when I threatened the congregation with restraining orders on every single person there. And I said, please do not contact. That journey was hard, but it taught me that you really need to care about people. And that's not the way to do it. It's not real. It's phony. It's unkind, and it causes trauma. So I will say to this day, it's been 5 years. I am the happiest I've ever been in my life. The happiest. And that's just only a little bit of my abuse in that organization. That's just a tiny bit. Some of it is very severe. I sit down and I write. I write about certain things that happened. I lost my son during that time. Him and my mother were killed in a double homicide. I was the only Jehovah's Witness and my 2 children. The rest of my family was not. So when my children at one time said, "Hey, let's go back and live with grandma," and we lived out of state. And I said, "Okay, we'll see." So during that time of living with my mom, I lost my mom and my son to her husband. He had taken their lives while I was down the street working as a manager, like I always do. And my daughter witnessed it, and she was only 14. And the Jehovah's Witnesses at the time were not sympathetic to this situation. And because my son was a teenager and kind of pulling away, like he didn't want to go to the Kingdom Hall anymore, he was just being a kid wanting to be himself. I mean, because we were so controlled, the kids felt it. So, and I wasn't seeing that controlling atmosphere. And I started seeing it more, especially when my son passed away, because they refused to hold his funeral service because they said he did not baptize as a Jehovah's Witness, excuse me. And they said to me, well, that's just how it is, but there's nothing written. And I thought, I am in my grief with a child I just lost, and this is the compassion you give me? So that just made it even harder for me. And it eventually, I was getting closer and closer to just like, I can't take this. So there was one, we called them brothers and sisters in the organization. There was this one brother, an older gentleman and his wife, who kind of took to me and the kids. They liked us, and they would come and sit with me and my daughter, or if my son went to the Kingdom Hall. And he offered to give the service at a mortuary. And it was very sweet and kind. And they were the only 2 out of that Kingdom Hall that probably had 300 people that went to my son's service. But we did make good friends out of state, and they flew in and went to the service. But the thought that you meet with the leaders of the organization, and they knew my son from the time he was in my womb all the way until his passing. He was not considered a human being to even have his service there, so everybody could go to the Kingdom Hall and be there and mourn with me or just be supportive. No, he was rejected. So that really was one of my other scars. So I had a lot to heal from. That is part of my cultist journey. I've taken the time to reflect over the past 5 years. When I got on YouTube, because it was always discouraged in the organization not to be on social media. That was really discouraged because it'll pull you away. So right away, I started learning about social media. And I run into different ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who have podcasts or individuals who have left an organization that was cultish, or they were from all walks of life who had some sort of trauma from some sort of organization. So I was watching all kinds of different people's stories, and they were so encouraging. And you just relate. You're like relating to them, like, oh yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
After you left in 2019, that's only 5 years ago. How were
Mhm.
you able to make that first step when it comes to growth and healing and also self-discovery?
I had to tell myself when it came to growth that I wanted to grow. It's the affirmations you need to give yourself. If you can't give yourself affirmations, and this is hard because when you come from an abusive home, there's not a lot of affirmation. You are in fight and flight mode most of the time as a child. So affirmations were hard for me. And I learned affirmations from being in a small business and in college. I learned that as a child, you need to hear positive affirmations. And as an adult, you need the same thing. So I would plaster, I would write out, "You are great, Rosie," and plaster it on the mirror in the bathroom, or "You got this," or "You're special today. Forgive yourself." And I would write these things, even on lipstick on the mirror, and I would see it in the morning. And if I had a goal, like I have this goal, maybe I want to complete all of my assignments with a 4.0 in my college class today or this semester. I write that up there. It's just those affirmations have been amazing. That is part of the growth that I got. And I end up eventually meeting some really good friends and ladies who encourage that. And so I clung on to their advice, and I still use it to this day. And I want to tell you a little something that's really, really, really cute. Okay. I like Splenda in my coffee. Well, on the Splenda packages, they have affirmation. And so I've posted those affirmations before on social media because it tells you you're sweet today or you've got this. Everybody needs some sort of encouragement because you have encouragement, you grow.
What can you say is your truth that heals, a truth that is worth sharing to others?
The truth of nature. I have realized that I learn from nature. I take that, whether I am standing on a bridge, I pulled my car over, traveling in a mountain, and I see this beautiful river. I pull my car over because I'm like, I'm taking pictures. That's what I'm doing. And I go over there to that bridge or wherever I can stand and see those beautiful green trees, you know, and the breeze flowing and the flowers around it. That's if it's spring or summer, not dead of winter.
Yeah.
And and then that's where I dream off. I'm off thinking about how special that river is. And it's like life. Life is the river. It's our river. And no matter how many boulders are in that river or how many logs, because logs tend to fall into a river and the river will move around it. But that river is like it's life itself. It continues. And the rivers up here in Oregon continue. Occasionally they go down in some areas, but the winter comes and you get that flow and the height of the water again. And that's how I look at life. That's how I look at my truth, is that I'm that river. And no matter the boulders, the logs, the sticks, whatever, that rapid, we kind of go through that. We go through that in our life. And it's what we decide to do with it. Are we going to be, or is Rosie going to be a river that just stops dead when the water stops flowing? Am I going to let that boulder stop me? Am I going to go around it like the river does and just keep going? Because that's what I learned from that, is that you just keep going. Don't stop. And if that could be something that motivates somebody so they don't feel so down on life, or they're struggling with depression, or they're struggling with something, they are the river of life in our world. They got to keep going because there's something better on the other side for you. And I truly believe that. And that's kind of like how I live my life now.
Now that we're wrapping things up for this interview, can you share where the people in the audience can find your work or find your social media platform?
Well, my name for my social media platforms is She Woke Up XJW. And I think my YouTube one is She Woke Up _XJW 6780. But it pops right up easily with She Woke Up. So I'm like the only one with that name.
Okay.
So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and YouTube. Yeah.